Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SCDRP 10th annual meeting. My name is Claire McGrath, and I am the director of the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership, or SCDRP. And I am so happy that you are all here joining us for what will be SCDRP's largest annual meeting in its 10-year history. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. So we have about, give or take, 140 attendees at this year's annual meeting. That's grown quite a bit from SCDRP's first meeting, which was attended, I believe, by about 20 people. And I know we have at least a couple of people in this room who were there at that first one. Anyone raise your hand if you were there? Okay, I see several hands. Yeah. So of our attendees this year, we have about 21% NGO, 21% private sector, 25% academic, and about 33% public sector. And if you're just coming in, come on down. We have plenty of seats in the front. That's what happens when you come in a little bit late. You get to sit right up front. So of the public sector attendees, we have 48% who are local or regional government, 32% who are state government, and 20% are federal government. You all are coming to us from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, the US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. And we also have some people who are joining us from other parts of the United States as well. Over the last 10 years, SCDRP has grown into the largest cross-sector, multidisciplinary, regional network for resilience and emergency management professionals in the region. As extreme weather becomes more frequent and more threatening to the people and communities in our region, SCDRP's mission is to serve as a trusted regional network, empowering practitioners, researchers, public servants, and community members to work together across sectors, political boundaries, and disciplines to create safer and more resilient communities in the Southeast and Caribbean. And you can learn more about what we do at our website, scdrp.secoora.org. We'll remind you frequently. There will be QR codes up. And SCDRP is a part of the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association, or SECOORA. And I am pleased now to pass things over to Debra Hernandez, SECOORA's Executive Director, to introduce SECOORA.
Good morning, everyone, and as a native Charlestonian, welcome to one of the most beautiful cities in the country. I hope you're going to take a little time to enjoy the city while you're here. As Claire said, I'm the executive director for SECOORA, a lot of letters standing for the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association, and we're happy to be here to welcome y'all and tell you a little bit about our affiliation with SCDRP. So SECOORA is about empowering people and communities with the data and information they need. So what we're most known for is our observing program, all the different sensors and technologies we deploy in partnership with communities and scientists so that we can generate data that turns into information that enables effective emergency response, better hurricane preparedness, et cetera. So our missions are to bring people and technology together to facilitate collaboration, and the resiliency partnership that SCDRP represents is one of our largest collaboration partnerships. We support resilient safety and a thriving blue economy. So our vision is that this work helps enable healthy ocean ecosystems, resilient communities, and that we're providing accessible data and information that's based on the science, the best science that's available. So our users span the gamut. Claire's already touched on most of those, from the private sector, engineering, maritime services. They pull the data that we provide and sell it and make money on the information that our communities are also using, our federal partners are also using to make good public sector decisions. And we're also very happy to be supporting state and local stakeholders, coastal communities, boaters, surfers, and scientists as they work and live on the coast. So what we do, I've mentioned some of this already. A little over 50% of our budget goes to the actual observing and monitoring. You can't just collect the data, you also have to make sure it's accessible to people and able to be readily found. So we invest also in data access and analysis tools so that that data is useful to a broad variety of stakeholders. We convene. This is one of our outreach programs. We have others focused on using drones, on ocean acidification. I invite you to our website to learn about some of these other programs. We also host a series of webinars and other trainings for professionals to communicate what we're learning and learn from communities what they need. And finally, we also have a few education opportunities to help with workforce development and bring new and young people into our field. So the results are increasing how well and how early we can detect hazards. We also provide most of our data in real time, so it enables quick decision making, whether you're trying to decide if it's worth the drive to the beach because the waves are big enough, or you're trying to decide whether to close a road or not. The data is available in near real time, so those decisions can be made. We also work across sectors, not just engineering, not just ocean science, but community leaders, et cetera. We are a federally certified program, so all our data meets all the federal standards. One of the beauties of the work we do is the data, because it's federally certified, it flows up into state and local pipelines, so feeds the National Weather Service, the hurricane prediction, et cetera. And the result, which I know I'm preaching to the choir here, is more prepared and resilient communities. So this is a quick snapshot. We have a table out front. If you want more detail, one of my colleagues, Cody Alsbrook, are you in the room, Cody? I don't see you right this second. Please speak to him. He leads our water level program, which is where we're getting more inland from the coast to work with communities on providing water level data. As you know, sea level rise and increasing flooding events are a real challenge to our whole region. And I'm going to hand back to Claire, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Debra. The theme of the SCDRP 10th annual meeting is Navigating Extreme Events, Doing More with Less Together. As you all know, communities across our region are on the front lines of increasingly severe weather and escalating climate risk. The people in this room are the leaders in your communities who are charged with preparing for, responding to, and recovering from these threats. As policy and funding landscapes shift, you are being asked to do more to prepare, protect, and rebuild your communities. And you're often being asked to do so with fewer resources. The goal of this gathering is to provide actionable strategies, new ideas, and most importantly, new connections with people who you may not have thought to work with before, to better equip you to face the challenges that your communities are currently facing and the challenges that lie ahead. We have a really unique group of leaders in this room. We have emergency managers, engineers, researchers, resilience planners, policy experts, scientists, community advocates, much more, coming from all different sectors and geographies. This meeting is an opportunity to build bridges, break down silos, and create opportunities to work together with the many different people who are working towards this same goal: safer, stronger, and more resilient communities. So as we spend the next 2 days together, I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to spend time talking with people who you don't normally have the chance to connect with, and think about what you want to take back to your community. You all are sitting here today thanks to the hard work and support from a number of members of the SCDRP community. The SCDRP Advisory Board listed here set the vision for this meeting by establishing the theme and the topic focuses for the meeting. Our meeting steering committee supported the entire meeting planning process, everything from determining the content and structure of panels, inviting speakers, reviewing meeting materials, and assisting with logistics. A big thank you to Alexander Easdale, Alyssa Zabrowski, Chad Martin, Dr. Dan Kilpatrick, David Johnston, Emily McGrath, Gino Olney, Gary Harris, Hannah Trotwin, Jared Bramblett, Jazz Watts, Jeff Morris, Jenna Cormany, Kate Morano, Catherine Egan, Maggie Steenberg, Randall Matthews, and Dr. Vamsi Krishna Sridharan for serving on the steering committee. Stephanie Robinson, who you've probably seen at check-in, was hired in December to support the SCDRP annual meeting, and she truly hit the ground running to help with logistics and planning. She's been amazing. And of course, thank you to Debra and the SECOORA team for the support of this meeting. This meeting would not have been possible without the College of Charleston Master of Science in Environmental and Sustainability Studies program serving as our host institution. We extend our sincere gratitude to the College of Charleston and all of its wonderful staff for supporting this meeting, keeping us fed, keeping the presentations rolling. Lucy Davis, who is right there. Let's please round of applause for Lucy. Lucy is the program coordinator for the Environmental and Sustainability Studies program. That's your correct title, right? I pulled it from your signature at the College of Charleston, and she is our on-the-ground meeting co-host, coordinator, overseeing logistics and setup, answering my endless questions, and I cannot emphasize enough how much we would not be able to hold this meeting without her. So anytime you see Lucy, please tell her thank you. Yes, you can clap again for Lucy. We are also grateful to the CO2 Foundation for their generous support of the SCDRP 10th annual meeting. And we're very grateful to our title sponsors for the support of this meeting. SWCA Environmental Consultants, Service Master of Charleston, Moffitt & Nichol, Paul Davis Property Restoration Experts, and the Center for Sustainable Communities. We are deeply appreciative of your commitment and support of convening practitioners from across the region to support disaster preparedness, response, and recovery capacity. SCDRP's group members help us sustain our work in fostering collaboration and building regional resilience. Thank you to our benefactors, NOAA Southeast and Caribbean Regional Collaboration Team and Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program, to our sustaining partner, IEM, and to our supporting partners, Georgia Tech for Sustainable Communities Research and Education, and Moffitt & Nichol. We appreciate your support in helping us make this meeting as environmentally friendly as possible. The Zero Waste team and the catering team at College of Charleston has provided environmentally friendly and low waste catering options for us. And you'll notice compost bins placed throughout the atrium. We've printed, as you probably noticed, cardboard name tags this year rather than purchasing plastic holders, and we are providing meeting programs digitally this year. The QR codes for the meeting agenda and the meeting webpage are up on the screen, and they're also around the atrium. You can download the meeting program on our webpage, and that includes speakers' full bios, session descriptions, details on lunch and learn sessions, and poster abstracts. The meeting website also hosts other helpful information, including resources that speakers will be referencing during their sessions and transportation information, including, very importantly, how to get to our networking reception this evening, which I'll share more about later. So a quick rundown of the schedule for the morning. This morning, we will kick off the meeting with our welcome speakers, Dr. Seth Pritchard and Mayor William Cogswell Jr., and our keynote speaker, Thomas McNeal. We will have a short beverage break from 10 a.m. to 10:15, and then we will return for state and territory emergency management resilience updates from 10:15 to 11:45. There are restrooms in the atrium. If you go out of this room and then go to your left down that hallway, and that's also where check-in, registration, and breakfast were. Our exhibit booths and posters are also located in the atrium. So we will be using Mentimeter. There we go. We'll be using Mentimeter throughout this meeting to help us with Q&A and audience participation. You can access Mentimeter from your browser, on your computer, or any device that is connected to the internet. You can use your phone, tablet, anything. And you don't need to download anything. So Wi-Fi access is available through CFC Guest. You just need to create a free login. And so to join Mentimeter, you can scan the QR code on the screen, or join at menti.com and use that code on the screen. And we're going to use the same code for the entire meeting, and it'll be shared frequently on our slides. So during our panels and presentations, we'll invite you to submit your questions via Mentimeter. You can submit them at any time during the presentation, and we'll save them for the audience Q&A. You will also be able to see the questions that others have selected. So if you see a question that you would really like answered, you can press the thumbs up button next to the question to upvote that question. We also might ask you questions. So as practice, go ahead and log into Mentimeter and answer the question on the screen. Seeing lots of South Carolina, which is not surprising. Kansas, awesome. Kentucky, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, that's where I'm from. Awesome. All right, so we'll be throwing in a couple of interactive elements like that throughout the meeting as well. So next, I would like to welcome Dr. Seth Pritchard, Interim Dean of the School of Natural and Environmental Sciences at the College of Charleston. Dr. Pritchard's teaching and research focuses on sustainable agriculture and the impacts of global environmental change on crop and forest systems. He previously served as the chair of the Department of Biology and associate dean, and earlier worked as a plant physiologist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. His research has been widely published in leading scientific journals and informs agricultural and environmental management practices. Dr. Seth Pritchard, thank you so much for welcoming us to the College of Charleston.
Can you all hear me in the back? Excellent. It's great to welcome everybody to the College of Charleston. Glad to have you here. I thought I'd take a few minutes to shamelessly plug all the things we're doing here at the college and all the things we're doing here in the School of Natural and Environmental Sciences. First of all, by the numbers, the College of Charleston was established in 1770. We're the 13th oldest institution of higher education in the country. We're the oldest in South Carolina. So we've been here for a while. I'm a little worried about what the next 100 years will bring on the peninsula, but that's another story. We have an enrollment of about 11,500 students, mostly undergraduates, about 600 graduate students. We have 70 undergraduate programs and 20 master's degree programs and 3 doctoral programs. 1.5. So this school is 1.5 years old. So we're a brand new school. A couple of years ago, we split from the School of Science, Math, and Engineering and became the School of Natural and Environmental Sciences in order to sort of shed a little light, put a spotlight on the environmental and sustainability work that we're doing in the school. 4, that's the number of academic departments that we have in our school: geology, environmental geosciences, chemistry and biochemistry, biology, which includes a robust marine biology program, and also physics, astronomy, and meteorology. 80, we have 80 faculty in our department, and those faculty are very research active. Some folks think of the College of Charleston as sort of a teaching college. We are very research active folks. Our faculty publish on average 120 articles in peer-reviewed journals every single year, and around 50 of those articles have at least one undergraduate co-author, so we do a really good job of incorporating those students into the work we do. So Charleston's a great place to have this meeting, right? It's kind of the disaster epicenter of the Southeast. Everything happens here. We've got earthquakes, flooding, thunderstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, mold, allergens, air pollution, wildfires, hazardous materials, coastal erosion, and a lot of these issues are exacerbated by poverty and environmental justice issues. So this is a great place to be to study sustainability, resilience, disaster response. So that brings me to the last number here is 52. 52 is the number of sunny day flooding events we had last year. So if you've been in Charleston much, you know that we get lots of sunny day floods. In 1950, the number was around 2 sunny day floods each year, and we're projected to have 100 sunny day floods by 2050. So this is timely. These are timely discussions. 12 is the number of inches of sea level rise we've experienced here in Charleston in the last 100 years, which exceeds the national average, because not only is sea level rising, but we're sinking, so we're subsiding. So it's kind of a double whammy for us here in the Low Country. So in response to all these issues, the Low Country Hazard Center was established in 2009 through federal startup funding from NASA and the Department of Education. Norm Levine is the director of that program. It's affiliated with the NASA Earth Science Directorate. It's charged with research, education, and outreach activities related to natural hazards in downstate South Carolina. So our Hazard Center has tendrils all through the state of South Carolina, in fact, up and down the eastern coast, and we collaborate with many federal agencies, state agencies, other universities, and municipalities. This is just some of the issues that the Hazard Center has been concerned with lately. County and state earthquake and hurricane drill preparations, resilience planning, planning for sea level rise. We're involved in the Charleston Dutch dialogues. So a lot going on through the Hazard Center. Another hub for us in the area of coastal resilience is at the Fort Johnson campus. Our Fort Johnson campus is about a 15-minute drive away, and it's a very special place. It's one of the best kept secrets in South Carolina, and in fact in the whole Southeast. The Fort Johnson campus includes a number of different partners. So here is the Grice Marine Lab. This is the College of Charleston's installation, home base for our marine biology programs. This is the Department of Natural Resources here. And you can't see it, but in the trees here is the Hollings Marine Lab. The Hollings Marine Lab is a NOAA facility, and within that NOAA facility, it's a shared resource. All the partners work together to solve common problems related to water quality, harmful algal blooms, coastal resilience issues, et cetera. So College of Charleston faculty are there, MUSC faculty are there, NOAA, NIST, and DNR. Ironically, the hub for coastal resilience is going underwater, so we've been working with South Carolina DNR to try to drum up the funds to rebuild the campus a little further up the peninsula to give us another 75 years of research. So that's our goal for the future. And we envision this as a sort of a hub for coastal resilience for the southeastern United States. This facility, at this facility, there are about 450 faculty, staff, and students who focus on aspects of water quality, coastal resilience. This is a major critical mass of folks in this space. We hope to actually expand the campus from Fort Johnson to Stono Preserve. Stono Preserve is about 1,000 acres that the College of Charleston Foundation owns. It sits directly on the Stono River. And our goal is to build a deep water dock on the Stono River. This is the Stono Preserve here. It's on the Intercoastal Waterway. We want to build a deep water dock to connect our two campuses together and use this as a launch place for living shoreline initiatives, to study water quality, to establish a demonstration oyster farm in partnership with South Carolina Sea Grant. So we have big aspirations there. If anybody knows where I can find $500,000, let me know afterwards. I also want to let you know that our school plays a large presence in NASA space. So we are the NASA Space Grant and NASA EPSCoR institution. So that runs from this school. We're quite proud of that. NASA Space Grant is a network of colleges and universities, and we are the lead for South Carolina. The consortium includes 16 universities from across the state, and we're sort of a flow through. We distribute NASA money all across the state to create educational opportunities for students in NASA-related areas and NASA-related research. So we hope to expand that presence in the next few years. I'd like to invite you to the Mace Brown Museum. It's right upstairs. It's, according to TripAdvisor, it's the 72nd thing to do, best thing to do in Charleston out of 284 things to do. So it's right upstairs and it's free, so check that out. It's a really cool place to visit. We hope to expand that in the future as well. So a lot of cool stuff happening in the School of Natural and Environmental Sciences. So, and we're open to partnership. We're a brand new school, and we're really trying to swing our elbows and carve out some space in the area of coastal resilience. And so if you have ideas for partnerships, please share those with us. I'll leave some cards on the front tray here, and so please feel free to reach out. And welcome to Charleston. If you need help with something in the building, the Dean's Suite is directly off the atrium, and we're always here to help. And obviously, Lucy is amazing. And by the way, she's not looking for another job. And with that, I thanks for coming.
Hello again. For those of you who came in a little bit late, can y'all see and hear me okay? I'm Debra Hernandez, the Executive Director for SECOORA, and also a native Charlestonian, and it's my pleasure to introduce our current mayor, Mayor William Cogswell Jr. He just had his second anniversary as mayor, but has a history and experience in development and balancing that with historic preservation. He's also served in the state legislature, so brings good negotiating skills and good compromise skills to the position, which is a requirement here in Charleston, where folks feel very passionate about their community, their environment, and the amazing growth that we are experiencing here. It's a real challenge to balance all that and maintain Charleston as a 350-year-old plus city and one of the most resilient cities in the country from my perspective. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Cogswell. We know he has a busy schedule and really appreciate him being here.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you all for being here. My official duty today, I believe, is just to welcome you all to the College of Charleston and to the city of Charleston and implore you to spend as much money as possible while you are here. But no, this is an honor to have the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership coming to town. I'm not going to have the dean come to any of our Chamber of Commerce solicitations, calling us the most, what did you say? It was like the epic center for all disasters. Like we got them all. Right. Y'all forget that when you leave here. I also want to thank, of course, Claire and her staff for putting this entire thing together, bringing everybody together, because I think it's critically important we have events, functions, groups like this, because I can just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, as mayor, I've been mayor for 2 years. It has been a baptism by fire. I think the first month I was in office, we had an historical event that was the highest flooding that we had seen since Hurricane Hugo. We've had numerous ice storms, snowstorms, near misses from tropical depressions, and we are battling ever-evolving sea level conditions that really put our historic peninsula and other parts of our city at risk. So again, from my standpoint, looking out at you all, it's very clear to me, and I've come to learn, that these sort of gatherings are essential for the preparation and getting everybody on board with the data and the details on what we need to do in order to address these events as much as, frankly, we can. So we have our own team. I've got Kaylin Cozella in the back there. She is doing a phenomenal job with our Office of Resiliency as we battle things, objectives with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I say that in a loving way with the Army Corps of Engineers, but it has been interesting with the urgency that we have on a lot of these resiliency issues, the pace that oftentimes things have historically gone. Whereas, I'll give you an example, we have this incredible pedestrian bridge that is being completed across our Ashley River that will connect a huge portion of our city to the historic district downtown. And when I went as a young mayor, I'm 2 years in, so I'm quite the veteran now. When I went as a young mayor to the groundbreaking of that, there was a lot of congratulations going around that this only took 18 years to get started. And to me, I'm just telling you, coming from the private sector, and while I wasn't our state legislator, and I know how progress can be slow, those sort of timelines don't work anymore. They can't work. There's an urgency here that requires a much more immediate action. And while this might not be the most popular thing to say, in fact, I said it one time when I was interviewing for a fellowship years ago, and I was quickly kicked out of the room, and that perfection can sometimes be the enemy of good. And when we're dealing with existential threats that are compounding, we need to act. We need to act and be prepared, and we need the data. And that is where, again, organizations like this are so essential for our city's future and our city's culture. So I just want to say I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you all leaning in and bringing your areas of expertise to help protect these cities, these landmarks throughout the Southeast and I guess the Caribbean as well, because I don't have to tell you, there's a real danger and it's not getting any easier. So again, just thank you all for what you do. Welcome to the city of Charleston. Please do spend a lot of money, but enjoy yourselves. And I look forward to what comes out of this and how it can help our city that I love very deeply and want to do everything I can to protect. So thank you all again for having me, and look forward to a productive few days. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to Mayor Cogswell for your remarks, for welcoming us. We promise we will spend a lot of money. We started last night. It was an honor to have you here. So next, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Thomas McNeal, Director of Emergency Management for Dorchester County, South Carolina, a position he has held since 2021. And in this role, Thomas advises county leadership and elected officials on emergency management and homeland security preparedness and response, and leads his team through both day-to-day readiness and major emergency operations. Over the course of his career, he has worked at every level of incident management and has deployed to major disasters across the country, most notably serving as the planning section chief in the Emergency Operations Center during the Baltimore riots, and in his own leadership position through response and recovery operations during a local Howard County flood emergency where an entire town in Maryland was destroyed. Tom's path to emergency management began with his service in the U.S. Army, where he served as an airborne infantry soldier in a long-range surveillance company and then left the military as a non-commissioned officer. He went on to work in corrections and then law enforcement in Topeka, Kansas, where he served on the police department's SWAT response team and crisis negotiation unit. In his first experience in emergency management, that came during a deployment to Mississippi following Hurricane Katrina, an experience that shaped his career and ultimately led him into the field. Tom later served on the state of Kansas incident management team, deploying in leadership roles to major disasters nationwide. He eventually returned to Maryland, where he spent 9 years as deputy director of the Howard County Office of Emergency Management and 4 years as Director of Security, Emergency Preparedness and Response for the Howard County Public School System, overseeing security, emergency management, and risk management operations. He holds a degree in criminal justice from Washburn University, is a graduate of the Executive Leaders Program at the Naval Postgraduate School's Center for Homeland Defense and Security, and is a certified emergency manager through the International Association of Emergency Management. Please join me in welcoming Thomas McNeal.
I literally almost wore that suit today. I'm so glad I didn't. And it's always weird to hear people, you read your bio, and when you write it a long time ago, you go, it's weird to write it, and then it's really weird to sit there and have people read it. I never get used to that anytime someone's ever done that. So thank you for having me here today. It's my honor. And I see some familiar faces in the room, and a lot of folks I hope to get to meet this week. And I like to, start these talks off with a quick introduction of myself beyond what you just saw. And I always start it with, I'm Tom McNeal and I need your help, right? Anyone who works in our field, works in emergency management, works in recovery, or works in any type of programs that you're trying to, make changes to the environment and the world around us in order to prevent disasters, you can't do it alone. And that's why I was really tickled to get invited here today, and especially the collaborative disaster preparedness response and recovery strategies, that collaborative piece. And if you work in our world, it's all about collaboration, right? So who am I? Why should you listen to me? What have I done? And a couple of those things were touched on. Like they said, I got my start in emergency management deploying as a police officer to Mississippi Gulf Coast following Hurricane Katrina. Kansas deployed a ton of folks into Mississippi, and I was one of the first people from the state to get to go. So I was there about 3 days after and ended up in the town of Pass Christian, Mississippi, which if any of you are from that area or region know what happened to Pass Christian during that. That's where the eye of the storm came in, right? A lot of us always think of New Orleans. We think of the flood. New Orleans was a flood. The hurricane hit Bay St. Louis and Pass Christian. So it was my first experience, even coming from Kansas, where tornadoes hit towns and everything else, and there's floods. And my first experience with big disaster was one of the biggest ones we've ever had. And to see an entire town just gone was a humbling and life-changing experience for me. And it ultimately just changed the trajectory of my entire career path. And you know, most people who have the gray in the beard like me, we have the story of how we fell into emergency management, because degrees in it didn't exist when I went to college. We had an emergency manager in Kansas, in the county where I lived and worked, and I knew they existed, but I didn't know what they did, and I was a police officer. It wasn't until I got that first taste of deployment and really seeing the nightmare of issues when you have a locality that's struggling for a variety of reasons to respond and recover properly. And as a patrol officer, you know, patrolling what at that point was a town that no longer existed, I couldn't help. I couldn't fix it, and that bugged me. So then I said, well, how do you get to fix it? And then I learned more about emergency management and incident command, and the state of Kansas realized, like, oh, hey, we're good at disasters. Why? Because we just call it seasons when you live in Kansas, right? It's tornado season, right? It's blizzard and ice storm season. It's drought season, right? It's flood season. Most places that we would, you know, can you imagine most places around here, a tornado hits a neighborhood and wipes out 4 houses? You're on CNN. I mean, that's huge. In Kansas, it's like a fire. You get the guys on duty and a Red Cross person, and it's just a tornado, right? Everywhere you go is a little different. So, but going to Mississippi, that was eye-opening. It really was. So I became part of that Kansas State Incident Management Team when they formed it. I was one of the first members of that, and then I got to deploy as part of the incident command structure and got to fix it, got to help, and really, really fell in love with the world of emergency management. And anybody who's done that level of work knows that it's incredibly hard and incredibly rewarding. So I encourage you, if you're not in that, you're already in that sector here, find your way into it because you're needed. So, you know, other notable major events, I worked the Greensburg, Kansas tornado, which is one of the largest tornadoes in recorded history. A 1.5 mile wide tornado went through a 2 mile wide town, wiped it off the face of the planet. Middle of nowhere, southern Kansas. I deployed to Louisiana for Hurricane Gustav and Ike, and ended up the emergency services branch manager for the state of Louisiana, working in the state Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and relieving for a few days the person who was in that role while they took care of their own life and their own damage. That was, another step in the world of changing my career trajectory. So as was said, I was part of the Baltimore riots, and I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, as well as the Ellicott City, Maryland flood. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then moving down here, the mayor alluded to it, the Tropical Storm Debbie, which caused some pretty serious flooding, especially in my county, which Dorchester County sits just west of Charleston County. If you look at a map, Charleston's wide and long across the coast, and then Dorchester and Berkeley counties sit to its west all the way to 95. So it's the tri-county, as we call it. But that flooding was a local event. And before Helene, which hit recently, this whole area, this whole region hadn't experienced really big since Hugo. I mean, we had the 2015 floods here and an ice storm and stuff like that, but big, it was Hugo. So a lot of the experience of folks, people like around here, the governor likes to do it too. They always trade on Hugo, right? They always talk, well, during Hugo. And I say to them, you weren't in charge during Hugo. You were probably a rookie if you were working at all, right? The leadership that ran Hugo retired 15, 20 years ago, right? That experience went with them. So the new experience of running big, and until we just had Helene, the state, like most states, hadn't run big. It's a small world when you run big, and if you've been fortunate or unfortunate as me to have worked several bigs, that experience is small out there, and it's an interesting community to be a part of. So I'm a storyteller. That's how I like to impart my lessons learned, my wisdom, if you'll call it that. Right now I have a pretty young staff, so it's a lot of fun because some of the things I did, they read about in history books in school. So, and I'm definitely the old guy who, in their world of technology and all that, they know. I'm the guy that when the tech company trying to sell us something says it's intuitive, they just sit me down and I bang on it like a caveman, and if I can do it, they're like sold. You know, if they can't, they just look at the vendor like, intuitive, huh? You know, when I tell them that, when I was a rookie cop, we had typewriters, and we thought we were cool because they were electric. You know, so my first email address was a work email address. So it's a very different world we live in now, and it's fantastic to have that. Variety of skill sets that come with our different generations on the team, because as something I've learned a long time ago is that you got to listen to the young ones, because just because they're young doesn't mean they don't know what the heck they're talking about, right? So, so my superpower, if I was to have one, is getting people to collaborate. I build teams. If you've ever read Stanley McChrystal's book, Team of Teams, when I read that book, I'm like, he's been watching me. That's what I do. I build teams, and I've over the years gotten really, really good at making the introduction and walking away in the EOC, right? Because you don't have time to stay for every meeting and every conversation. But that knowing who knows something that can help the person who has the problem is my superpower. And whether I'm doing it, in my normal day-to-day operations, or whether I'm doing it in an emergency. That's something that I pride myself on being able to do, is figure those things out and bring them together. So we all are aware of our current situation, right? Around the country, we know that there's changes everywhere to funding streams, especially in the grant world. Regardless of politics, it's an issue for those of us who live and die by grants for a lot of the things we're trying to do. So what's that mean, right? It means we have to think differently. It means status quo is no longer status quo. The grants I used to talk about as being like super stable and don't even worry about it is now I don't have that money anymore. So that's important to all of us, because one of the problems that most jurisdictions have is that we counted on those monies for far too long. Even though we all knew, it was always in the back of your head that someday that grant will dry up. You never know. It's a grant. You never know, right? We all said it. But did we change how we conducted our financial security? No, we didn't. Not most places, right? So some of us are doing okay. I'm doing okay. Some of us out there are getting hammered by it, where they're losing staff even because they, didn't switch things over time into being fully budgeted. And I blame a lot of that on us. Where have we failed in explaining what we do? Right? Those of you that work in mitigation, do people actually understand what you do? I work in emergency management. I can tell you very few places, leadership, very few of them know what it is we do. Right? That's our fault. We talk to each other, and we talk smack on the people who don't know what we do, but we don't educate them. That's our fault, and that's been our fault for a generation, right? Because my young staff members walking in the door now with degrees and graduate degrees in emergency management shouldn't have to explain what emergency management is, right? We shouldn't have to explain why hazard mitigation is important. We shouldn't have to explain what hazards are and frequency or infrequency and what's a black swan, right? What are they scared of this week is what they spend money on, right? But is that really what we should be spending money on, right? Those are the problems we all have. I see nodding heads in the room. We're all like, yep, that's our fault. We screwed up, right? Well, we have to fix that. And the other thing we have to do is we have to learn to rely on each other. We have to find different ways to do the things we do. And that's going to be critical for us all moving forward, is those collaborations, right? Who can do a little bit of the thing I need done, right? Because we all have time. That's one thing we have. Some of us don't have a lot of time. Some of us think we don't have a lot of time because we're not prioritizing correctly. But what is it that we have? We have the ability to collaborate. We have the ability to find alternate ways of funding things, right? Because we can't just go back to the same grant because that grant doesn't exist anymore. Well, what grant does? How do we write this up? Who can help me to use the right language to trigger that grant committee to give me the funds to do the project that's actually your project, but it's kind of my project, and all those things. How do we do that? It's collaboration. So that's what I really want to talk to you about today, is building those teams and collaboration. I'm going to talk about a couple of incidents, like I said, and we're going to talk about when it doesn't work and the reasons why, and we're going to talk about when it does and how big of a difference it makes. So I want to talk about the Baltimore City riots. April of 2015, as most of you can recall if you rewind the tape a little bit, a gentleman named Freddie Gray died in the back of a prisoner transport vehicle driven by Baltimore City Police, and it became a nationwide story and brought up a lot of social issues and everything else. Beyond all that, Baltimore City had a riot. And why did they riot? They rioted because of that, but there was also a whole lot of tension building over the years and everything else, right? So what a lot of people don't know about that is, one, that riot was started by children. Children. A bunch of high school kids walked out of school and ended up, a skirmish line of police showed up, and next thing you know, they're throwing bricks, and next thing you know, officers are hurt, and next thing you know, there's some gas being launched, and next thing you know, and then the whole city erupted. The other thing a lot of people don't know is a lot of the major issues that occurred during that event were by organized crime. Every pharmacy in the city of Baltimore and immediate surrounding area was looted for opioids. So the following day, there was 7 years worth of opioids on the streets of Baltimore. And it is a heroin capital of the nation. It's one of those places, right? 7 years worth. So why did the murder rate go skyrocket in Baltimore? Because drug dealers have to regain territory, and everybody's a drug dealer. We can't have that, Those were some huge issues that came out of this. So how did I get involved in it? Because I was in a neighboring county. I worked in Howard County, and this was a Baltimore City issue. And Howard County, Maryland, sits between Baltimore and D.C. It's a bedroom community for both. And the emergency managers in the room know we all make those deals with our buddies. You ever have a problem, you just call me, right? If I'm not involved in the problem, I'll come help you, right? Well, we had done that. My friends in Baltimore City Emergency Management, we'd made those pacts over beers at a conference, right? I'll come help you, buddy, right? And then next thing you know, I'm sitting in my office watching on TV this riot begin. And I did the one thing you never ever do, right? You never do. I picked up my phone and I texted him, "Don't be afraid to ask for help." And I went, Why? Because I broke the cardinal rule, right? Leave them alone. They'll call you if they need you, right? But I couldn't help myself, right? I knew how big this was going to be. You could see it happening in real time. And then like an hour later, I get a text back from him that simply says, "I might take you up on that." So I grab my phone again. Where do you need me? What do you need? Put my phone down. 4 hours later, I get a response. In his world, that was about 30 minutes. But in a real-time major event, time is moving way faster than you think it is, right? Because there's so much going on, you're so overwhelmed. And his text to me that night, I was already home at that point, and it's all over the news, all over national news, right? His text back to me was, "I don't even think I can get you safely into the city tonight. How about you come in the morning?" I said, "No problem, I'll be there." And so that next morning at 5:30 in the morning, sun just barely peeking over the horizon, I start my drive into the city from home. Didn't live too far from the city. And I'm in a black, law enforcement style SUV with the spotlight, right? Why? Because they're cheap to buy when you're buying on the government contract. Marked says OEM on the side. And I drove around burning tires. And I had a small crowd throw a street trash can at me that I had to dodge in the vehicle to get to their EOC, which wasn't even an EOC. It was the Traffic Watch Center. And that's what they normally use as their EOC. They're true EOCs in the northern part of the city, and it's one of those Cold War bunkers underneath a fire station. It's too small for them to really use, so they don't use it other than as offices. And Baltimore City also has a watch center. They have a 24-hour-a-day watch center, and they have cameras all over the city. It's really kind of a cool setup. And they can get into all the city-owned cameras. They can get into, they have agreements with businesses and even private homes to get their cameras. They have so that you rob a 7-Eleven and they're pulling up the hotel down the street, catching you on that camera, and then catching you on the stadium camera, and then catching you on a bus camera as it drives by you running the other way. I mean, they've got it down pat, and it's a really cool thing. So they have police representatives, fire, public works, all these folks in there 24 hours a day managing the small crises that occur when you live in a major city. And it's pretty cool, except that night. Why? Because emergency management stepped in and said to the police commissioner and the mayor in the watch center at one point, this has grown larger than a law enforcement event. It needs to be under emergency management, and law enforcement needs to run operations. What do you think happens? What do you think happens when you work in a place that's stovepiped completely all the time? They said, you're not taking this from me. This is law enforcement. But if we write it on paper, let me show you, it's not. We have other stuff going on. We need to coordinate this at a higher level. Madam Mayor, you need to make the decision right now. Is it law enforcement or is it emergency management? While the riot's going on, there's no plan written on paper for this moment. And she said, I choose law enforcement. And the law enforcement, the chief commissioner of the Baltimore City Police Department said, anyone who doesn't have a patch like mine on their shoulder, get the hell out of my watch center. So it even removed the normal fire and public works and everything else. And what do you think that did to coordination? Yeah, there was zero. Zero. So I arrive, about 6 in the morning, I'm walking into their EOC, and I walk into an EOC that is in shock. Rightly so, right? The amount of officers screaming for help as they were surrounded by crowds and all those kinds of things that were happening throughout the night. They had fire apparatus going to fires, because a lot of Baltimore City is row homes, and they are terrified of row home fires taking off, and a lot of them are abandoned and old, and they burn fast, and because they'd have to fight it like a wildfire in the city, because it's like rows of trees, right? So they even have plans to, if they needed to bulldoze buildings, your home or not, to save the city, we got to bulldoze these 3 row houses to stop the fire, like cutting a fire line through the forest. It's wild, some of their plans. They have plans for that. So they had single engines with a crew of 3 responding to an active house fire that was firebombed, making entry by themselves and putting it out. Then only to run back out, jump on the truck, and go to the next call while they're getting bricks smashed through the front windshields of the fire trucks. It was that level of night. So you walk into an EOC, it's in shambles. And I walked in, I walked up to my friend, and I'm there just to be there, right? I'm here. And he says, hey, can you start thinking about recovery? Like in his brain is I was like, sure. And at the time I was for the Baltimore UASI, I was a regional recovery manager that led a group to work on regional recovery. So that's, I'm sure, why his brain went, can you work on recovery? I said, sure. And then myself and another friend who had also come, as we're sitting there kind of talking about what we're working on, we look around and we realize there's a lot of things not happening that should be happening. As an emergency manager, you can look at an EOC and go, they're not doing some stuff that they should be doing. So we kind of made a list, and we went back to him and said, he was the deputy director at the time, and I was the deputy director where I came from. And we said, hey, you don't have a planning cell going on. He said, oh, you're right. He's like, can you do that for me? Sure. How are you doing logistics? Oh, we got this one guy over here, and if you need something, he gets a call and he puts in the thing. And how are you doing broader logistics, like to the state and all that? Baltimore City had never, ever asked for help. They never had to. Because if you got 1,000 cops, it's easy to throw bodies at something. If you got 900 firefighters, it's easy to throw bodies at something until the problem goes away. They'd never had to ask for help. Well, they had all kinds of help coming in. And I said, well, okay, this is a law enforcement issue. I better find my law enforcement person here in the EOC. And I walked over and found a broken police officer with his foot on the chair who didn't know the phone number to the watch center. The problems compound. Well, where's the fire guy? He's over there. Okay, what's he doing? Oh, they have an incident management team they brought in for the fire department. Oh, that's fantastic. Can they come here? No, they're just for the fire department. Oh. So how are you all talking together? Who manages collaboration? What's collaboration? We don't have to collaborate. We're Baltimore City. We're too big, right? And anyone here who comes from a major city knows that those problems exist in major cities. But they don't just exist in major cities. They exist in smaller locations too, right? You can go out here in parts of South Carolina where you have little, smaller counties, and they do not run well as far as collaborativeness. They might run well other ways, but they don't run well as far as collaborative. And that was the same issue that was going on in Baltimore City. And one of the major issues it had was logistics. The staging area became the stadiums. Why? Because everyone there had gone to football and baseball games at some point in their life and knew how to get to the stadium. So the people coming in chose the staging area. Where are we going? I don't know. Let's just meet at the stadium parking lots. It's big. We can defend it. So that became staging. 2 days into the event, I said, I need to put my eyes on staging. I'm not hearing stuff from staging. I should be hearing stuff, right? I went to staging. No one was running staging. There was a restaurant who had brought in one of their big trucks and was feeding people barbecue 24 hours a day. There was porta-johns there in the stadium, because there's normally porta-johns in the stadium that no one was emptying because no one was in charge. I talked to a National Guard 2-star general. No, I'm sorry, he's a 1-star general. And he wanted to complain to me about how terrible this situation is, that no one's running this. And I said, you're a 1-star general. Take charge. I'm like, you're a general. They'll listen to you. We realized that there was police units from other jurisdictions, riot units that had been in staging for days and had never been deployed into the field. And we learned that there was folks in the field who had never been relieved and were taking turns sleeping in alleys, guarding each other. I mean, that was how broken it was. And it was all because of lack of prior coordination, prior planning, and then on the day coordination. When you have those stovepipes, it is damaging, right? And that's not something I have to explain to you in great detail. It's obvious. So, the big things, the big lessons I took away from that in the world of collaboration is that they had a complete failure to plan, right? They never planned for big because they'd always run big by themselves, but they'd never run big, right? It's the Katrina all over again. It's Helene all over again, right? They're like, oh, we've run big. There was that ice storm. That's not big. And people look at me like, how dare you say that wasn't big? It was big for us. Oh, I'm sure it was, but it wasn't big. When you think about Hurricane Sandy, Maryland had a hurrah blizzard in the mountains. 3.5 feet of heavy wet snow, 100-mile-an-hour straight line winds brought down trees and power lines and then buried it in heavy wet snow in western Maryland. Right? You couldn't find a generator this side of the Mississippi. That's big, right? That's big, right? When no one is coming to help you because they're all engaged in their own crisis at that moment. That's big. So Baltimore City, being its own thing, it had lots of help available to it just within the state. There was tons of, it's a heavily populated state. Governments are big. Law enforcement departments are big. They have whole entire riot platoons and stuff, right, with gear. It's not just, hey, we're going to throw some cops together and we're going to solve this problem. No, there was trained individuals. National Guard came in, all that. But they had never written a plan on how to receive the help, right? So when you yourself are completely stovepiped, non-collaborative, and then you don't have plans on how to use the help you received, even the help you asked for, you don't know how to use them, you don't know how to expand your infrastructure at all different levels to include leadership, you're doomed to, I'll say fail, right? I think they could look back at their first few days and say it was a dismal failure in the world of how things should have been run, right? And you can point tons of fingers at different folks, and there was enough blame to go around to all kinds of people. But it's a lot of it is just that ignorance that we often have of how big is big, how bad is bad, and what does it really look like. And that's an important thing to think about as you look at your own world, your own shops, right? Your own departments, your own businesses even. Are you prepared for big? Are you ready to expand? Are you ready to launch into someone else's big and be useful and be flexible and be collaborative? So, Baltimore City became awesome at staging. They put their entire emergency management group through staging area training and a lot of other departments, and they became this collaborative machine because, one, they needed to, and two, they were embarrassed. I'll say that. They were embarrassed. They know, if you're an emergency manager and you're watching your whole emergency management structure just fail, that's painful, right? And now you can't get through a disaster without some failure. You can't. But when you just look at it and go, ooh, that one hurts, yep. Do you have a plan for this? Nope. Do you have a plan for that? No, I do not. Shouldn't you have a plan for that? Yes, I should. I should have written one about 4 years ago, and I did not. That's hurtful, right? And they experienced that, so they became experts at it. So in May of 2016, a back-building thunderstorm moving west to east across the state went through Howard County, Maryland, over top of the town of Ellicott City, Maryland. And Ellicott City is not very far from the Baltimore City line, just to the west of it. And it is a mill town. It's a very hilly area, and it's an old mill town, to the point where it floods all the time, as far as small floods, as far as you get a good, decent monsoon rainstorm, and there's several inches of water running down Main Street, down the sidewalks, to the point where they literally had plywood boards, and the shop owners would step outside and wedge it against their door jamb at an angle to kiss the water off from going into their shops. Just homegrown ingenuity to, oh, it's raining, let's get out there. The water's coming up. Am I afraid? No. Why? Because it does this all the time, right? But a back-building thunderstorm dropped about 6.5 inches in 2 hours of rain. Now here in the low country, that's just rain. In a granite, hilly region where the soil is only a couple inches deep at any given point, that became a water slide. And it destroyed a town. That literally this trickling stream, babbling brook that ran the length of the town that actually spun the mill went underneath buildings. All these historic buildings, and when you walked underneath them when it was just a babbling brook, you could see the pipes that came down from the building, because originally that was the sanitation system. You flushed the toilet and it just went into the creek and flushed into the Patapsco River, which empties into the Baltimore Harbor. So I'm at home, it's a Saturday night. Get the call. The thunderstorm alerts are going off all the time. That's not a big deal, right? And then flooding. Floods there all the time. It's not a big deal, right? You're thinking flash flooding. The normal intersections are underwater. It'll be gone in an hour. It's not a big deal. Flood emergency. They're pinging every cell phone, on the towers. Flood emergency, flood emergency, flood emergency, flood emergency. It's bad. I get a call from our dispatch center saying, it's bad. Ellicott City is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. I said, all right, well, I'm on my way in. I get calling, we alerted the all the folks who come to the EOC, get into the EOC. And I drove through the remainder of the storm, and it was so bad. The rainfall rate was so bad, because I'm coming from east into west towards it, that at one point, I literally, windshield wipers going as fast as they could not see more than a foot or two in front of my vehicle. And I drove around the blinking flashers of cars that had stopped, figuring if I'm staying in between them, slaloming them, I'm probably still on the road until I could get through it and get to work. That was an experience. Well, I get to the Emergency Operations Center, and it is a world in chaos, right? And we're like, okay, what's going on? This happened, we got flooding. They're doing some rescues in downtown Ellicott City, and the Emergency Operations Center sat at the top of the hill of Ellicott City. And so right literally down the street, it's bad, but I don't know how bad it is yet. And our stormwater management people come over, and with the dam plan for a large earthen dam for a lake we have, and say, it's rapidly rising, it's reached, you gotta do something point. Because if it tops the dam, it'll dig it out. Like California had that issue not too long ago where a dam was doing that. And it can blow out. Okay, so what happens when it blows out? Let's open the map. Columbia, Maryland, if anyone's familiar with that area, Columbia, Maryland, if incorporated, would be the second largest city in Maryland, but it is not incorporated. The little trickling, babbling brook that runs through Columbia, Maryland, through people's backyards and stuff, is barely a stream, right? Sometimes it's even dry. Well, if that dam fails, and we're at you got to do something point, if that dam fails, 16,000 homes are going to be crushed by a lake of water tidal waving down. That's what the plan says. Well, that's bad. Do we have plans on how to evacuate that? Where are we taking these people? Do we have checkpoints? Where do the cops go to do the roadblocks? Right? And then someone says, from an address on Main Street, Ellicott City, 7181 down, total loss. Total loss. Where's 7181? Start at the river. Oh my God, that's 2 miles. Total loss? What does that mean, right? So I've got to evacuate 16,000 homes, and I have a town that is total loss, and we know right away, because everybody was in town, because the bottom floors are all shops, the upstairs are apartments, there's a lot of restaurants, it's a Saturday night, every restaurant was booked, they got some fancy restaurants down there, everything was booked. So people are already reporting loved ones that got washed away, and we can't find them. And the flash flood's done. It's dry now, right? Town destroyed, people missing. At this point, we're really worried. We got, some deaths occurred from this. I got to evacuate 16,000 people. And it's a localized event. But for me, it's big, it's huge, right? So, I immediately started asking for help. I called the State Emergency Operations Center, asked for a Type 2 incident management team. I need this, I need that, I need my liaison, I need this, I need that, and help is on the way. What I had done also is we, learning from Baltimore City, had gone back and looked at our plans about how do you use the help you receive? How can you be collaborative in that? How do you put them to work when they walk in the door? Do you have the cheat sheets that they need? Because you don't have time to explain everything to them. Do you have all that built? And we did, which was awesome, because friends started walking through the door. The other thing that happened was I got a text from Baltimore City, emergency management deputy director, who said, let us know if you need help. We're standing by literally at the office right now. We're ready to come help. And an hour or so later, I responded back to him, yes, I need your help. I'm not even sure what I need you to do yet, but I need your help. He says, we're just pulling in right now. We self-deployed. And my first thought is, self-deployed? You can't thank you very much for self-deploying. Yes, that's exactly what I need. Why does he know that I need that? Because a year ago, he got his butt kicked, right? So he knew, and they literally had bought they had a staging area trailer, and they had all this stuff, and I had picked the spot that was going to be staging and had done nothing else for hours with it. Literally, like on a map, I was like, we'll use this for staging. Moving on to the next problem, right? And they went there, because they'd found out that was going to be our staging, and set up staging. So as resources started coming in, there was someone there to run staging for us. So that collaboration occurred naturally, because we were so collaborative in that vein at that point that your friends knew what you needed. And days later, when I got to speak to him face to face, he goes, yeah, we figured we were just going to show up. If you don't need us, we can always just turn around. It's not even that far. It's a 25-minute drive, you know. So I was, grateful beyond reason that they did that. And that was huge. And I can tell you, going to disasters, as I've made a career out of going to other people's disasters, it is far different when you own it. Anyone in here ever own one? A decent size, big? Yeah, a couple of hands. It's different. It's way different. The stress is enormous. The fog of war is enormous. Why? Because you're a victim too. It's your town. It's your community. It's your friends. I knew people who owned those shops. I knew them. I knew the chef at this restaurant. I knew him. He owned it. He was famous, You know them, right? And you're wondering at that point, are they even okay? Right? You're thinking about that. And then you're writing names on a whiteboard of the missing, right? And there's people suffering right now. And there's people who have lost their businesses. There's people who have lost their homes at this moment. There's people, every car is gone, right? Well, this is big. This is huge. And one of the best things in the world that can happen is when your friend walks through the door and they just give you a hug. And the first thing they do is say, are you okay? Are you okay? Right? Why? Because they can see it, right? Anybody ever answer the phone and the person on the other end says one word and you go, what's wrong? Right? I was a hostage negotiator for a while, and that was something we were always taught, like never grin too big while you're talking and never be scared to death while talking, because they can hear it on the other end of the phone. You got to keep a straight face, stay stoic. Why? Because you can hear it. It's human DNA that we can tell when something's wrong with somebody. And they could tell, something's not wrong, right? I can be quite the blowhard about things I've done, and that's not how you do it, right? Well, when they walk in and see me crumbling under the stress, they knew. And that collaboration that you do all the time with these different people in your world, in your circles, lends itself to that this person is no longer a colleague. Like, sometimes we don't think about it. They're your friend, right? After this meeting, you went to this restaurant, broke bread, and hung out for a little bit, and you see them all the time, and you're on Zoom calls together, and you see each other at different conferences, and it's a lot of fun. And but you don't often think of them as like a friend, right? Because they live just far enough away that you don't hang out on the weekends. But they're your friend, and when they walk through the door, it's a friend walking through the door. And how do you make friends? By collaborating with people. By doing more than just saving a business card, by reaching out, having those conversations, checking on people when they have the little ones. So, one of the things that occurred that I will never, ever forget is I'm a list maker, right? And my list was huge because, I'm managing the operations of this major event. And, when you have something big like that, you're doing a lot of teaching and coaching as you go along, right? And so you're expanding your own office's duties and other people's duties. And yes, you wrote a plan for it, but you really didn't practice it well, so they're still very much a rookie at the plan. You have stuff in writing, but they're a rookie. So how do you expand that? And one of the things that happened was I had this laundry list of things, and on like day 3 or so, I needed help with one of the things on my list. And our recreation and parks there in Howard County is massive. It's like a 400-person agency, and they had their own public works, their own all kinds of stuff, right? So they had stuff, and they were smart kids, right? They were the most highly educated department in all of local government, as in most local governments. If you're looking for smart kids, go to your Parks and Recreation folks and start checking out what level of degrees they have and things they did prior to, you know, like I had one gentleman who was a parks manager, and he was in charge of their arborists. He was an arborist, and every day they had a team that was going around taking care of trees, right? Well, he spent his summers through college and graduate school as a wildland firefighter and had deployed to these giant things and all this stuff. And our own fire department special operations chief, they sat next to each other in an ICS class I was teaching, and the chief of special operations said, "How do I not know you? You're a resource to me. You have more skill than anyone else on the fire department when it comes to wildland firefighting. You know things. You have a team of individuals who can chop down trees because they do it every day. I have firefighters that play with chainsaws on roofs now and then, and once a year cut down a tree. Why am I not using your people to do some of the work that needs to be done?" You know, those collaborative efforts. So anyway, Recreation and Parks comes to my meeting, and it's their director and deputy director. Very, very experienced gentlemen. And I sit down, and I'm, at this point, you know, people, the other thing I'll say when you have big is people want to run, right? People get scared of big, right? Even experienced people get scared of big. And they're not afraid to run their little piece of the pie, but they don't want to take on more work. And it's usually fear of failure, right? That's what drives a lot of people to not want to do these things. So I've been hesitant to even ask for some of these things on my list. It's not their job to do, and I'm just trying to find somebody to take it off my plate because I can't keep running all these things. My bandwidth is done, and I'm exhausted. I didn't even sleep for the first 72 hours, and the first day I walked 18 miles because we had just been given Fitbits by the county government health program. I walked 18 miles in an EOC about the size of this room because I never sat, ever. I walked 18 miles, and that's how I knew the incident was getting smaller, because the next day I only walked 12. And then the next day I walked 12 for a while, and then only walked 10 miles, and then only walked 8 miles. I lost 30 pounds in a week. I was sick, because I didn't sleep for 72 hours and never stopped walking. It was like going to ranger school again. 30 pounds. Now, I could have stood to lose, like today. I can't wait, you know, for another giant thing where I'm stressed and don't sleep for days, because I could stand to lose another 30 pounds. But that, you know, did it come back around right away? Yeah, I gained about 15 of it back like in a day. But that's huge. You know, in a 7-8 day period, you lose 30 pounds. So Recreation and Parks sits down with me, and I humbly ask them to take something off my plate. And before I'm even done explaining what I need, they said, "Done." And they watched my shoulders drop because they had just taken a piece of burden off my shoulders. And then they said something that I will never, ever forget, and something I try to say when I'm going to help others and I'm trying to be collaborative. And they said, "What else is on your list?" I said, "Well, I have this thing done. What else is on your list?" And they took my list. I had like 7 or 8 things on there. They took my list. Why? Because they're a department of like 400 smart kids. And they have their own public works and their own leadership command and all these other things that they can do. And who's really good at emergency management that you don't think about? Parks. Why? Have you ever run a summer camp? Have you ever run a summer camp with thousands of children at different places all over the county? You think something goes wrong every 7 minutes? And most of the people that work for you are teenagers or barely in their 20s running those summer camps. They know how to solve problems. A lot of bad stuff happens in parks. They know how to solve problems. They took everything off my list. Now, why did they do that? One, they're just really good people, right? They were my favorite department to work with, honestly. And the other thing is because we'd worked together so much on so many other things, doing different types of collaborative responses and different types of planning and helping them to get, their chainsaw guys. I used Homeland Security grants to buy them a trailer and other chainsaw equipment and made them a deployable asset. to go do cut and toss, and actually got them deployed to several hurricanes over the years. And they had their bobcats with the claws, and they had dump trucks and everything else. Why? Because they got their own public works. And they became a thing. And that, and they got to use that trailer and chainsaws every day for the arborist team. So it's something I just repeated in my own county, where we using grant money, bought chainsaws and trailers and been training people how to run chainsaws so we can do cut and toss. But it was that collaboration that we did all the time that made them my friend. And I kind of didn't even realize they were my friend, right? They were really fun. They had great meetings. They always had snacks, They always had fun. Talk about icebreakers. Go to a Rec and Parks meeting. But that was amazing to me, that someone's willing to take everything off your plate. So the other thing we had was the fact that I was in charge of the recovery program for the Baltimore UASI, that one of my staff members had done all the work. I just was the figurehead. She had rewritten the plan on how to do regional recovery. And doing that, a lot of things had changed even at our local recovery. And now we have this incident where we have to recover. So we took the framework that she wrote and made her in charge of it, and the county executive's office had a young staffer, smart kid, that we put the two of them together and kicked them out of the EOC and said, go find a place to work and start recovery. And then they start trickling back in, as the days go on, going, okay, it's time to work on this, it's time to work on that, and to the point where it eventually just turns into recovery, right? Response is over. But the things that they had created and collaborations they were already beginning to do on their own with the minimalist of leadership from me was changing the game. One of the things that we did that was really cool was finding unique collaborations, like our Economic Development Authority. Like most jurisdictions have somebody who's doing economic development, and where are they their own office? Are they attached to the mayor's office or whatever? There's someone in charge of economic development. And they go around to these meetings and they court these big businesses to come in, and they're thinking about the future, and they're usually working with a cog or trying to fix these highway systems to better transportation networks to allow more big warehouse stuff to come in. They're always doing this stuff. But they had this incubator, and economic development incubators where these young startup companies, a lot of times they're tech companies, need a place to work and they need advice, right? Because the tech guy is great at the tech, but they're usually poor business people because they didn't take those classes in college, they just took the tech classes, which is something we can all, a lot of you that work kind of in the world of disaster mitigation tech know this, right? Like, I got a guy who's great at flood stuff, terrible business partner, right? So they got economic development involved to assist the businesses. And they became the voice of all these businesses. And these are all just mom and pop shops, like so low end that a lot of them hadn't even paid taxes in years because they couldn't afford to pay taxes. And it was one of those deals where the county government just kind of left them alone. Like, it'd be bad press for the amount of tax we'd actually get out of them. It'd be bad press to destroy this mom and pop shop that's been there for 50 years and all that kind of stuff. So economic development went in and brought in business and marketing experts on their dime to help all these businesses to recover, and not just recover to where they were, but to learn how to run a small business differently and to learn how to improve their business models. So most disasters, right, recovery of small businesses, it's only 25% of small businesses return. We know that. That's been a standard for years and years and years, and it's sad, right? When you watch those businesses fail and go away, and the day after the disaster, everybody's like, we're coming back, we're going to rebuild, right? And then we know it falls off the cliff. And then reality sets in, they don't come back. What do you mean I don't get any insurance money? That kind of stuff. We had a 90% business survival rate for that town. 90% of businesses that weren't doing good in the first place. And some of them really got good at their stuff. Doing online orders for the first time ever, sending stuff overseas to Asia in the mail. That's some cool stuff. but it's that unique collaboration in the world of recovery that a lot of people don't think about. Who does these things, right? We all go, oh man, that's so sad. These businesses, what are they gonna do? I heard they're not getting their insurance. What are they gonna do, right? Well, who's good at businesses? Who's got that written on their shirt? That's something I like to say to people. Doesn't say IT on my shirt. I don't know how to fix this thing. Find me an IT person. This smells like a fire and rescue thing. Find me fire. Well, we found business, and the thing that they did, because they're great at the collaborativeness of the larger business world, is they went out and touched those big companies, big corporations, and helped funnel experts and stuff and even some funding to these smaller businesses to help them recover. So I got to watch, expert collaborators at work. And, anytime you get a chance to sit in on those types of meetings and learn from people who do this for a living, do so. Why? Because it will help you to run disasters. It will help you to learn, one, who does things, but also how do you get them to do things. So I'd like to tell you a little bit now about some of the collaborations that we're doing here. Those are the old stories, right? And now we're doing collaborations here. So I've been here a little over 4 years this December. Was my 4-year anniversary coming down here to the Low Country. And anyone who's ever lived in the Low Country, the beautiful accents, and there's not a lot of the beautiful accents anymore because there's so many people coming in, that they'll ask you, are you a from here or are you a come here? What? It took me a minute or two to get my ear tuned to the accents down here. When you get somebody who's got a thick one. And you are from here or you are come here? From here means your people are from here. You grew up here, your family's from here, you've got generations. A come here, depending on who you ask, you can be first generation come here, or you're third generation come here, but you're a come here, because you're not old school, right? And so I say to people now, I'm a come here, but I'm a stay here, because I love it here. And one of the things I love about being here is the fact that it's hurricane country. And everybody in this room, as part of this conference, this association, works somewhere in hurricane country. It's the Southeast, it's the Caribbean, right? The projects you work on are helping with flooding where? In hurricane country. And when you're in hurricane country, people think about emergency management a little more than other places in the nation. They just do. Why? Because we watch the storms every year. We all sit at least once a year in that cone of uncertainty and have to start doing stuff and have to start thinking about stuff, and then it doesn't hit us and we go, then we gotta go help our neighbor, right? So that's one of the benefits of being here, is that there is a better understanding of emergency management and the problems associated with it compared to other places that I've lived and worked. So much so that I tell people, I'm like, it's like watching deer. You're like, shh, don't spook them. I don't know what's going on, but this is amazing. I've never been in a place like this. The first exercise we did, an EOC, every year before the hurricane season starts, we do an EOC exercise, and it was my very first one. And I watched the county administrator walk in, put on a white EOC vest that said county administrator on the back, and sat down and started filling out an ICS 214. And I've never in my life experienced that. And didn't have to be told, knew exactly what to do, and did it on his own without prompt. And that was, from that person down, that's how business was run long before I showed up. So I tell people all the time that the people before me did a lot of hard work to create that. I just get to make it shiny, which is also a great place to be if you're at this point in my career where I don't want to start over again. I don't want to rebuild it from scratch. I just get to make it shiny. But one of the great things that we're doing here in the Tri-County is we've started, I don't know if many of you know about the growth rate here. The mayor alluded to it, but it's been a 40% growth rate in the last 10 years. 40%, it's huge, right? Which is why it took me an hour and a half with the fog to get to do a 40-minute drive, and I was raging all the way in. But that's important for us to start thinking differently about, we can't be stovepiped as jurisdictions, we have to think regionally. And myself, coming from the Baltimore UASI, and the fairly new director of Charleston County Emergency Management, who started in DC, who was a friend of mine there, who I literally brought in to help me in planning in the Baltimore riots by name, who just came from LAX Airport, where he was the director of emergency management, also knows a thing or two about UASIs and how to do regional collaboration. So we've now formed the Tri-County Regional Preparedness Program, and we used some grant money that dried up to hire an individual about 2 years ago to be the first person in that chair, who paid for by grants, works for me, answers to the 3 directors, and is doing regional planning, right? Because any of you who live in a region or have a next door partner has always said, we need to write a plan on that. We have this regional thing. We need to write a plan on it. And what happens? We have the great meeting, and nobody ever writes a plan. Why? Because our own staff are too busy to take on a regional project. So we don't write the plan. Well, we finally hired somebody that writes those plans. And so we've been building on that. We have a regional mass care response plan that involves hospitals and everything else. And we have regional exercises now, different regional response plans to earthquake, different regional staging areas, regional this, regional that are all growing. Unfortunately, the young man who I hired straight out of grad school has moved on to another position. He had a background in meteorology, always wanted to be a meteorologist, and the National Weather Service stole him from me. So he's in Columbia now, working for the National Weather Service. So if you know anybody, you can send my way. I will steal them if you let me. But that regional thought that we have, and we went out and found who can we collaborate who thinks regionally. The COG, Council of Governments for the region, right? And they were tickled to death when we walked through the door and said, we want to collaborate regionally. Can you help us? And they were like, what? It's like deer, right? Don't spook them. They said the right things. People want to do regional stuff. So now we're partnering with them. We have also made our sheriffs, our 3 sheriffs, and our 3 deputy county administrators are now part, along with the 3 emergency management directors, are on the steering committee for this, because a lot of it smells like Homeland Security, right? Well, how do you get the buy-in of others? You involve politics. What better politics for Homeland Security than your sheriffs? And they all like each other, so we've drugged them in. And they use our meetings now. They piggyback on our meetings to have their little sheriff meeting. And they like it because the deputy county administrators for public safety are in the meeting with us. And every now and then they got to talk about money with the sheriffs, and the sheriffs say, hey, hang on, don't leave. And they drag them into their meeting. That collaboration is occurring rapidly, to the point now where we're building regional strike teams for law enforcement. So when you have the Helenes or something else, right, they put out we need 100 cops. Who can give you 100 cops? Most agencies don't even have 100 cops. You've got to build a package. You've got to build something regional. And if you've ever dealt with an EMAC request to go state to state, by the time you build it, someone's already got the job. Why? Because there's a few people out there who figured this out a long time ago, and they're waiting. They just hit send. As soon as it comes out, they're like, ooh, we need a search and rescue, send. Right? They know how much it's going to cost, and they hit send. And those people are like the professional deployers, right? You see them on every event you go to. It's the same teams. But we're starting to do that too. We're building that. It floods here. We have some incredible swiftwater rescue assets. So we have those kinds of regional teams. And lastly, the thing I want to tell you about is the NET, the Neighbor Empowerment Team. It's the holy city. And we know volunteerism is dead, and we know that different organizations can't do the mission they once did because they just don't have the volunteers that they once did. And disaster world is hurting because of that. Well, I look around and say, there's a church on every corner. How come we're not using our churches? So I got a call from an individual from the faith-based community who said, I want to start organizing churches to work in disasters. I said, boy, you called the right guy. So now we have a collaboration effort between the majority of churches in the region, where there's 911 center can call a phone number, and that phone number gets passed around, and that individual has the lists from every church of who can do a thing. You know, because there's a lot of guys who would love to put a tarp on a roof in the middle of the night, but want nothing to do with a soup kitchen, and vice versa, right? Well, how do you engage those different resources throughout your community through the faith-based community? So it's a very exciting program. If you want to hear more about it, stop me, and I'm happy to talk about it. But That's my time to talk to you. And as I said, I'm a storyteller. I can stand up here all day. Because one story to another story. You know. Don't get me drinking. Then I will dominate the night. But I appreciate very much the opportunity to speak to you all, and I look forward to getting to meet a lot of you individually throughout the week. And welcome to Charleston.